told today that I'm engaged in multi-regional input-output analysis, and so the problem of heterogeneity is very touching for me. So, but today I'll speak not about the heterogeneity of the economy, but only the population. I know that people here are very friendly, and so if I present something which is still in progress and rather intermediate results, it will be okay. Okay, and maybe even you will help me. Well, I risk and suggest this topic, model of diversity, systematic analysis and application to Russian economy. So my task is to introduce the model, which is theoretical and new for me, and then to show something, some result. This is a rather difficult task for me, and I'll omit some even important details, but not key ones. So many ideas, but there will be some math.
Microphone, please.
Sorry. We are two authors, me and postgraduate student Anastasia Ivanova, good Russian name. We are from Northwest State University and Institute of Economics. Well, first of all, what is diversity in my mind? There are several words designating this word, this notion in English. When I mean that there are a certain different groups in the society, I will say variety. And when I speak also about the size of them, so some structural growth, I will use the term diversity or heterogeneity. So diversity, heterogeneity, groups that are of and aware of being different. So they may simply have different behavior, but also be aware that they are different. Though I analyze ethnical diversity of Russian regions, I understand that behind this diversity is cultural diversity, and there are two aspects in this. First, variety of cultures and opportunities for sharing and learning from others. So opportunities to create the innovative atmosphere. But cultural differences may provide for difficulties to understand each other and possible conflicts. So additional additional communication cost in society. So I cite a classical work on this topic. The first side is just on conflict of preferences, racism, prejudices, which provides for additional communication costs. But an ethnic mix and cultural mix may lead to innovation and creativity, and USA is just the example of the melting pot for cultures. And I think, and I try to show it today, that Russia is also the example of such a melting pot. Well, our motivation, there is a need to have a simple model comparing collaboration costs and benefits of diversity to be able to analyze endogeneity of diversity and factors which affect optimal diversity. I believe that the optimum of diversity exists and accessible. Another goal is to understand theoretically why growth why diversity indices are significant, work properly in growth regressions, and not only in growth regressions, but in economic regressions when there is a problem of differences between agents in the model. Literature, there was a huge literature on the topic, but I focus only on the modeling of trade-offs, and so, as I believe, endogeneity. So there are trade-offs between heterogeneity and size of states. The larger countries, the larger states are more likely to be diverse than smaller ones. There is trade-off between productive benefits of diversity and costs of communication. Double nature fragmentation is suggested in the model of just the authors I cited. Diversity is a factor of production and alienation acting on preferences. In the model of Italiana and Empirical model, distribution of heterogeneous workers in US city markets based on how heterogeneity acts on popular preferences and firms' efficiency. And there are some works on Russia, on the diversity of Russian regions. There are no maybe new theoretical models, but they make econometric analysis based on panel data, using census statistics, and their result diversity supports economic output in Russia. Well, our base model, it is already published, but in Russian. We discussed it at the conference on operation research through with mathematicians, and published as a sound article. And we suggest that rent-seeking activities require spending real resources as an Empirical model. And these resources are subtracted from their total volume. So more rent-seeking, less production. Then production processes create a common result price, which then could be acquired by the competing groups through their rent-seeking activities. Every agent has a limited resources to use in production. That generates labor. One component is to generate labor income, or to rent out in order to get rent income. So alternative. These agents are grouped homogeneously. What do I mean? They form heterogeneous groups, but each group is homogeneous inside. And in long run, diversity has a positive impact on productivity due to mutual learning, complementarity, and innovative atmosphere. So, some math. There are three, of course, without details, only idea and the logic. There are three steps to develop this model. The first is simple short-run model. So we N large is the primary agents. They form N homogeneous groups, and we deal mainly with relative volumes, the shares in the sample, and each group maximizes its income, and there are two components: one the income from production, and another one from rent seeking. And T is not the mandate of the tax; it is an institutional variable, a share of rent in the income. What then is distributed with the help of rent-seeking activities. Well, and the share of each group. So each group gets as the part of the rent proportionally to its activities, to the share of its activities in rent-seeking activities in the total volume of rent-seeking. It is as in Taleb model, simple Taleb model, who knows. And the solution is principle is very simple for total values, not for groups. I admit skip some details because there is integer decision and column decision, but in total it is very simple. So X is the volume of rent-seeking activities to acquire the price, the common price, and Y is minus X, just the productive activities. Now the step 2 is long-run model, and I need to create a production side. All the groups now are of same size. Yes, it is convenient, and the total output is just a multiplication of useful activity, production activity, and labor productivity being increasing on n, the variety. So we suggest such form, two components, labor productivity, which is not associated with the growth of the varieties, and the one increasing. And mu is an institutional parameter. Then we rewrite, it is more convenient to deal with the variable m, which is, so it increases with n, but varies from 1/2 to unity. And now I introduce a social planner who maximizes the output in the society. Who could be such social planner? I believe that natural processes in economy or in population. Could be would be so more groups. The groups would break down, yeah, if the communication costs are not so high, or there could be some it is both Russian and English word. Assimilation. Assimilation. And in the economy as well. Yeah? Acquisitions and mergers of the firm versus the product and production differentiation, depending on the how high the communication cost and expected benefits of the variety. And so the result, the optimum of the of the variety is achieved when m and n minus 1 equal to this formula BC technological parameters, and mu is just the propensity to rent-seeking activity. Because if B is 0, then mu is simply equal to x large, which is the total volume of rent-seeking activity. Well, the third step, I'm sorry, the shortcoming of this model is that each group no matter of each size get the same part of that common price, which is interesting because then that means that small groups are more have larger propensity to rent city. But of course it is not real. And so we introduce one more difference. For the groups, it is under the assumption that groups if groups feel less alienated, they are more likely to socialize and thus engage in rent-seeking activity. So I omit the theory of alienation indices. There are index which measures the total volume of alienation. Under some natural conditions, it reduces to well-known ELF index, ethno-linguistic fractionalization, which is unity minus Herfindahl-Hirschman index. And this index, which I use, is just the probability, just the probability that two persons independently selected from the sample will be from different groups. And so it varies from 0 to 1, and I use it in the regressions. The solution is not explicit, but it is possible to derive it from some system of regressions. And what is important? Each group under this situation has individual share in the rent seeking and individual share in the common price. And we prove that the higher is the ELF index, the higher is the volume of rent-seeking activities X. And so that means that this index and some other diversity index work properly in the economic regression. So there is some explanation of why. Now, excuse me, some application of the model. There were two censuses in Russia, 2002 and 2010, and I'm interested just in the period between these dates and look at the change of ELF index up to the 2010, and interested what factors define the change and how. And there is the diversity index in the beginning of the period. It is not very high, averaging, but for the distant it is rather high. And the change of this index during the period was rather high as well, more than 16%. And also the number of groups which are in the different regions, they vary from 66 to 142. Also, we regress change of the ELF index to its initial level and use some control variables. Per capita income, infant mortality, investment share, investment climates, and some others.
Excuse me, Nikita, Are the 83, are they different geographical areas, would you say? What are your observations?
83 regions. 83 regions in Russia. But since I don't have the full volume of information for all the regions, I use in the sample 79. Yes, I'm showing this. This is just the results. Just the results. It is regressions for index change of the diversity index. And as a regresses, yeah, adding more and more variables. And adding this process doesn't change the result for two basic ones. It is ELF index, initial level of diversity, and its combination with initial income with per capita income, so some interaction term. And you see that the signs are different, capturing just the duality of the influence of the diversity. And then some institutional variables and also migration rate and natural population growth rate. Everything is good, taking into account that, of course, migration, natural population could be endogenous to the change, the first change rate. And so we take this result carefully. But nothing changed. And the last statistical table, it is the system of regressions for the just the change of diversity and GRP, gross regional product, so income change. So it is, I'm sorry, growth regression. It includes well, initial PC, but here in combination with L index, investment share, yeah, then one more variable regressor, it is fall of the production to the 1998 year, where was the minimum of production due to crisis, structural crisis. So the idea is that the higher, the stronger was fall, the larger is the potential to growth. So I use this regression. Yes, and 3 stars means 1% significance level, and 2 stars 5. So all the regresses are significant, with good significance. So I use this model to calculate the elasticities. Well, here are income elasticity and diverse change elasticity with respect to initial level of elasticity of the diversity. And the first is positive in the most part of regions, yeah, and the second one is negative. And the first result supports the result of previous research, Russian scientists. And the second one is that the higher was the initial level of diversity, the lower was the growth of diversity. And the lower, then the higher. I think it is rather natural. And the results by aggregate results by the Ockham's diversity index, then change of the index and elasticities. So the first one, diversity elasticity, is negative except for the region North Caucasian Federal with the highest initial diversity, and the income elasticity, of course, the level of income elasticity is not high. Yes, it is only some additional source of growth. Yes, and in Far Eastern Federal Okrug it was even negative because of many regions, administrative regions, coming to this, included into this region were of high income. So I formulate the principal conclusion as three statements. Since I am tired, I operate. There is an optimal diversity arising from the interaction costs and benefits of diversity. Other critical factors include propensity to land seeking, I showed in the model, and agent alienation level, also from the model. Between the census of 2000 and 2010, in most regions in Russia, as a whole, the level of ethnic heterogeneity increased and sustained the economic growth. And the third one, the factors of growing heterogeneity, international and international migration. I didn't focus and stress at this, but it was in my pages. As well as the natural growth of population. So the balance of the migration in Russia during this period was plus 2.6 million, and it is positively affected the level of heterogeneity. And the natural growth of the population was 4.4 minus, with minus, it was negative. And why I say it add something to the heterogeneity, because it is minus, the coefficient is negative in the regression. And that means that simply the larger groups, the basic groups of ethnicities in the regions reduces stronger. Well, this is what I wanted to present.
We have time for several questions.
But people want to eat, I think.
Oh, no. Every time.
Small question. You used in your computations logarithm of variables. Usually, logarithm is one of Box-Cox transformations with stabilized variance. What's this reason for your approach or something else?
Well, my approach here was not theoretical. Simply, I used what better works in the regressions.
You did not prove variance, that's the stability of variance.
No, I didn't substantiate the use of logarithm and inferiority, because, but I know the literature on this. I'm sorry. So, practical approach.
Thank you.
I have one question and one comment. The first is a question. And as far as I understood, your model is something similar to an agent-based model. And
Based models.
an agent-based model.
Agent, yes, it is game theory.
And I would like to, I didn't understand which is the variable that describe the difference between agents. Is the level of education, is the level...
The level of alienation. So people, the members of the group feel themselves more or less alienated with respect to the members of all the other groups. So, well, I'm not the member of this society, or my membership is small, and the larger groups are not so. They understand that they are socialized more than the people who smoke.
But you speak about diversity, but I don't understand what is the variable that measure this diversity. Is diversity in terms of level of education? Is it diversity in terms of implicit labor productivity?
Yes. Well, in all the members of different groups are different in culture. And culture is something wide, broad. So the models of behavior, their education, their religious, and so on. But explicitly in the model, I don't use these coefficients. So simply I say that people of different ethnicities would be different.
Okay, and so the model explain that a higher number of groups create a higher level of productivity.
First, but then at the third part, I explicitly introduce one more difference. How socialized are the members of groups. And this, under some assumption, I can measure. And this make the share of each group in common price administrative rent not equal, but individual. First. And second, I prove, I don't show this, that in, say, change of growth of index of health index versus index, and not only this, but there are some other indices also could be derived from the common alienation index. The higher this index, the higher is the volume of rent-seeking activity, distribution activity, which of course would be not explicit shadow, or maybe efficient.
And they have just
Yeah.
I have just a final comment about usually in this model the agents interact.
Yes.
And the problem with this model, as far as I know, is that they need a lot of iteration to converge to specific results. But the problem is not about the solution of the model. The problem is that it's difficult to understand what is an iteration. Is a month, is a year, is a quarter. Many people try to use iteration as a time, but it's not time. And I think that time is a really important variable inside an economic model, because otherwise we can do, okay, we have benefit in 100 years, 200 years. But
Well, could I comment your comment? Well, there is the approach of rational expectations. And if we grant the people with this type of expectation, then the length of this period is not so true. People know how will other people act. So what I was speaking about is probably adaptive expectations. So it is some notions from macroeconomics.
yes, I'm speaking about real world.
Real
Time
and it's discussed.
Good time for one more question. Asagawa Sensei.
Yes, people, institutions, and national economy maximize their revenues through production activity and also rent-seeking activity. In your presentation, some resources are spent in rent-seeking activity. Yeah? The resources include not only financial, but also the labor force.
And so on, maybe other. So when in basic model, each member is granted with one unit of labor. And since the model is simple, we don't consider other types of resources. If we spoke on the firms, then I think it is right to speak about assets, not labor. It depends. But now, my results on population, I believe that this model will be applied to economic objects. Really.
Okay, one more hand for Professor Suslov. And so for lunch, I hear a rumor that there's available black caviar and famous Sochi wine.